The courtroom was colder than I had anticipated, not in temperature but in atmosphere. The stares of the people seated behind me bore into my back, as if they were carrying the weight of judgment even before the verdict was announced. The click of the judge's gavel still echoed in my ears from last week's hearing. "We will reconvene in a week to determine custody." Those words had been haunting me ever since. My hands trembled as I adjusted the hem of my blouse, the same one I had worn the day my daughter, Lily, was born. It was supposed to bring me good luck today, but luck felt like a distant dream. All I could think about was the laughter of my baby girl. She had just turned 4, and her world was made of crayons, bedtime stories, and the fairy wings she refused to take off even at the dinner table. "Miss Carter," my lawyer's voice jolted me back to the present. Jonathan Pierce, the only person in this room who seemed to believe in me, leaned closer and whispered, "Remember, the most important thing today is to stay calm. They will try to rattle you. Don't let them." I nodded, though the knot in my stomach only tightened. Across the room sat my ex-husband, Daniel, flanked by his high-powered attorney and a sense of entitlement so thick you could cut it with a knife. He wore his usual smug expression, the one that seemed to say, "I've already won." The judge entered, and everyone stood. As we sat back down, I stole a glance at Daniel. He looked polished, confident, as though he'd already written the script for today's proceedings. But beneath the surface, I knew who he truly was, a man more concerned with appearances than the well-being of his own child. The proceedings began with Daniel's attorney painting me as an unfit mother. "Your Honor," she began, her tone icy, "my client has grave concerns about Miss Carter's ability to provide a stable environment for their daughter. Her financial instability, her past struggles with anxiety, and her lack of a support system all point to one conclusion: she is not fit to be the primary caregiver." I clenched my fists under the table, my nails digging into my palms. Anxiety? Yes, I had battled it, but I had also conquered it. Financial instability? I worked 2 jobs to make sure Lily never went to bed hungry. Lack of support? Maybe I didn't have a family to lean on, but I had love. And wasn't that enough? When it was my turn to speak, I felt the weight of 1,000 eyes on me. "Your Honor," I began, my voice shaking but firm, "I may not have wealth or a big house, but I have something far more important: the unconditional love of a mother. Every decision I make is for Lily's happiness and safety. Yes, I've faced challenges, but those challenges have made me stronger, not weaker." I saw Daniel smirk out of the corner of my eye, but I refused to let it derail me. I recounted the nights I stayed up stitching together costumes for Lily's school plays, the weekends spent teaching her to ride her bike, and the countless moments when her laughter had been my anchor in a stormy sea. But then came the moment I dreaded. Daniel's attorney brought up the one incident I knew would haunt me forever. "Miss Carter," she said, her voice dripping with condescension, "could you explain the events of last March, when Child Protective Services visited your home?" I felt my heart drop. Last March had been a nightmare, a culmination of exhaustion, stress, and a misunderstanding that had spiraled out of control. I had come home late from work, and Lily, tired and cranky, had thrown a tantrum. A neighbor, overhearing the chaos, had called CPS. They found nothing wrong, of course, but the stain of that visit had never left me. I took a deep breath and met the attorney's gaze. "Yes, CPS visited my home," I said, "and they found no evidence of neglect or abuse. That visit was the result of a misunderstanding, and since then, I have done everything in my power to ensure Lily's well-being. My daughter is happy, healthy, and thriving." The judge nodded, scribbling notes as I spoke. Jonathan gave me an encouraging nod, but I could feel the tension in the room. The scales of justice felt unbearably lopsided, and for a moment, I wondered if love would ever be enough to tip them in my favor. As the hearing continued, I shared more about my life with Lily, painting a picture of a bond so deep it felt unbreakable. I spoke of our rituals: Sunday pancake breakfasts, bedtime stories under the glow of fairy lights, and the way Lily always said, "I love you to the moon and back, Mommy," before drifting off to sleep. But as I looked around the courtroom, I realized that words alone might not be enough. This was a battle not just for custody, but for my very identity as a mother, and I wasn't ready to lose. The judge called for a short recess, and as the courtroom emptied, I caught a glimpse of Daniel laughing with his attorney. My chest tightened, but then I thought of Lily, her bright eyes, her infectious giggle, and the way she hugged me as if the world depended on it. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. The courtroom doors felt heavier when I pushed them open after the recess. It wasn't just the weight of the wood. It was the weight of what was at stake. Every second felt like a countdown to a life-altering decision, one that would either leave my daughter in my arms or rip her away from me. Jonathan, ever the steady presence, walked beside me, flipping through his notes. "You're doing great, Claire," he said, his voice low and reassuring. "Just keep focusing on Lily. The judge needs to see your heart, not just hear your words." I nodded, trying to ignore the lump in my throat. My heart? It was breaking piece by piece every time I thought about the possibility of losing her. When we returned to our seats, Daniel's attorney wasted no time continuing her assault. This time, she shifted her focus to Lily's schooling. "Miss Carter," she began, flipping through a file as if to find the perfect weapon. "Lily has already had to switch preschools twice because of your inability to maintain consistent employment. Would you call that a stable environment for a child?" I braced myself, knowing this was coming. "Your Honor," I said, turning to face the judge. "Yes, Lily had to change schools, but each time it was because I was doing everything I could to provide for her. When I lost one job, I found another as quickly as possible. And even during those transitions, I made sure her needs were met. Her teachers can confirm that she's always been happy, engaged, and loved." "Happy?" The attorney raised an eyebrow, her voice dripping with skepticism. "And yet, you've had no family support to help you through these so-called transitions. Who looks after Lily when you're working late nights?" "Miss Carter." My jaw tightened. She was twisting the truth, trying to paint a picture of a mother who was overwhelmed and unfit. But I wouldn't let her narrative define me. "I rely on trusted neighbors and friends," I said firmly. "And when I'm not with her, I make sure she's cared for by people who treat her like their own. It's not the same as having a large family, but it works. Lily has never felt unloved or neglected." Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Daniel lean back in his chair, his arms crossed as if he'd already claimed victory. The smugness on his face fueled a fire in me that I hadn't felt in years. He thought he could erase me from Lily's life with money and connections, but he didn't understand the depth of a mother's love. When Jonathan took the floor, his voice was calm but commanding. He began presenting evidence that countered every accusation thrown at me. He brought up testimonials from Lily's preschool teachers, who described her as a bright and happy child. He submitted records proving that I had never missed a single doctor's appointment or parent-teacher meeting. And most importantly, he reminded the court that I had always put Lily first. "Miss Carter is not a perfect mother," Jonathan concluded, looking directly at the judge. "But who among us is perfect? What matters is her unwavering commitment to her daughter. She has sacrificed more than most to ensure Lily's happiness and well-being. That is the measure of a fit mother." The judge listened intently, her expression unreadable. I clung to every word Jonathan said, praying that his argument would tip the scales in my favor. Then it was Daniel's turn to speak. He rose from his seat with an air of practiced charm, his voice smooth and confident. "Your Honor," he began, "I'm not here to vilify Lily's mother. Claire loves our daughter. I know that, but love isn't enough. A child needs stability, structure, and security. I can provide all of that. I can give Lily a life where she never has to worry about moving schools or missing out on opportunities." He gestured toward me, his tone softening in mock concern. "I don't doubt Claire's intentions, but intentions don't pay bills. Intentions don't provide a safe, consistent home. And intentions certainly don't guarantee that Lily will grow up with the stability she deserves." His words stung not because they were true, but because he made them sound true. He was a master of manipulation, twisting reality to fit his narrative. But I knew the truth, and I had to make sure the judge knew it too. When it was my turn to respond, I stood up slowly, my hands gripping the edge of the table for support. My voice was steady, but my heart was racing. "Your Honor," I said, meeting the judge's gaze, "stability isn't just about money or a big house. It's about love, trust, and being there for your child no matter what. I may not have Daniel's resources, But I have something he doesn't. A bond with Lily that can't be bought or replaced. She doesn't need perfection. She needs me. The room was silent, save for the sound of my own breathing. I could feel the weight of everyone's eyes on me, but I refused to waver. This was my chance to fight for my daughter, and I wasn't going to let fear hold me back. As I sat down, I glanced at Jonathan. He gave me a small nod, his expression a mix of pride and determination. The judge called for a brief recess before delivering her decision, and the tension in the room was palpable. I stepped outside into the hallway, needing a moment to collect myself. The cool air felt like a lifeline, grounding me in the chaos of the day. I closed my eyes and thought of Lily, her laughter, her warmth, and the way she always ran into my arms as if nothing else in the world mattered. No matter what happened in that courtroom, I knew one thing for certain. I would never stop fighting for her. The hallway outside the courtroom was eerily quiet. My heels clicked against the polished floor as I paced back and forth, my nerves frayed to the breaking point. The air felt heavy, each breath a reminder of the gravity of what was at stake. Jonathan stood by the window, his arms crossed, staring out at the city skyline as if searching for answers in the distance. "Claire," he said, breaking the silence, "I need you to prepare yourself for whatever the judge decides. Custody battles aren't always fair, but no matter what, this isn't the end." I turned to face him, my voice sharper than I intended. "How can you say that? If I lose Lily, it is the end. She's my whole world, Jonathan." His expression softened, and he stepped closer. "I know, and that's exactly why you're stronger than they think. But you need to hold on to that strength no matter what happens in there." I nodded, though his words did little to ease the storm inside me. My thoughts drifted to Lily, her tiny hands clutching her favorite stuffed rabbit as she waved goodbye to me this morning. She had no idea what was happening, and I wanted to keep it that way. To her, the world was still a place of magic and safety, untouched by the harsh realities of adult decisions. The sound of the bailiff's voice echoing through the hallway jolted me back to the present. "Court is back in session." Jonathan placed a reassuring hand on my shoulder. "Let's go," he said. As we re-entered the courtroom, I could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on me. The judge was already seated, her expression neutral yet commanding. Daniel and his attorney were whispering to each other, their confidence radiating across the room. I took my seat, clutching the edge of the table as if it were the only thing keeping me grounded. The judge cleared her throat, and the room fell silent. "Before I deliver my decision, I want to make it clear that custody cases are never easy. They are emotional, complex, and deeply personal. My responsibility is to ensure that the child's best interests are prioritized above all else." I held my breath, my heart pounding so loudly I was certain everyone in the room could hear it. In reviewing the evidence presented, the judge continued, "I have considered the stability, financial security, and overall environment each parent can provide. Mr. Carter has demonstrated that he can offer a life of material stability and structure for Lily. However, that single word hung in the air like a fragile thread of hope. It is evident to this court that Miss Carter has an unbreakable bond with her daughter. Her love, dedication, and willingness to sacrifice for Lily's happiness and well-being cannot be overlooked. Stability is not only about financial means but also about emotional support and consistency. Lily has thrived in Miss Carter's care, despite the challenges they have faced." I felt my chest tighten, tears welling up in my eyes. Could this be real? The judge continued, her tone firm but compassionate. "Therefore, I am awarding primary custody to Miss Carter. Mr. Carter will have visitation rights, and both parents are expected to cooperate in Lily's best interests moving forward." The room blurred as tears spilled down my cheeks. Relief, disbelief, and an overwhelming sense of gratitude washed over me all at once. I glanced at Jonathan, who smiled for the first time that day, his confidence finally rewarded. Across the room, Daniel's expression hardened. He leaned toward his attorney, whispering something I couldn't hear. Part of me expected him to lash out, to make some last-ditch attempt to regain control. But instead, he stood, adjusted his tie, and left the courtroom without so much as a glance in my direction. The judge's voice broke through the haze of emotions swirling in my mind. "Miss Carter, I trust you will continue to prioritize your daughter's well-being. This court will reconvene in 6 months to review the custody arrangement. I strongly advise both parties to work together for Lily's sake. Yes, Your Honor, I managed to say, my voice trembling. As the courtroom emptied, I sat there for a moment, trying to process what had just happened. The fight wasn't over entirely. There would be more battles to come, more challenges to face. But for now, Lily was safe. She was mine. Jonathan placed a hand on my shoulder, his voice gentle. You did it, Claire. You proved them wrong. I wiped my tears and nodded, a small smile breaking through the exhaustion. No, I said softly. We did it. Thank you, Jonathan. Outside the courthouse, the winter sun shone brighter than it had in weeks. I took a deep breath, the crisp air filling my lungs as if to remind me that I could finally breathe again. When I arrived home, Lily ran to me with her arms wide open, her laughter filling every corner of the room. She didn't understand the battle I had just fought, but she didn't need to. All that mattered was that we were together, and I would do everything in my power to keep it that way. As I hugged her tightly, I whispered in her ear, I love you to the moon and back, baby girl, and I always will. The weeks following the court decision were a mix of joy and exhaustion. On one hand, I finally had the legal assurance that Lily was staying with me, a victory that felt like a miracle after months of uncertainty. On the other, the lingering pressure of maintaining this new arrangement weighed heavily on my shoulders. Daniel might have retreated for now, but I knew him too well to believe he'd given up entirely. He was the kind of man who thrived on control. Losing custody wasn't just a legal blow, it was a personal affront. And though I had walked out of that courtroom with my head held high, I couldn't shake the feeling that he was plotting his next move. But I didn't have time to dwell on Daniel. My focus was on Lily, as it always had been. Mommy, can I have the sparkly shoes today? She asked one morning as I helped her get ready for preschool. Her little face lit up as she held up a pair of silver shoes she adored. Of course, sweetheart, I said, smiling, but only if you promise to keep them on and not trade them with someone else like last time. She giggled, her laughter filling the small apartment like sunshine breaking through clouds. Moments like these reminded me why I fought so hard. Lily wasn't just my daughter. She was my reason for everything. After dropping her off at school, I headed to my new job. It wasn't glamorous, just an admin position at a local nonprofit, but it was steady, and the hours allowed me to be there for Lily when she needed me. My boss, Karen, was a kind woman in her 50s who had become something of a mentor to me. How's Lily doing? Karen asked as I settled into my desk. She's great, I said, smiling. She loves her new school and keeps talking about how she's going to be a teacher when she grows up. Karen chuckled. She sounds like a bright kid. Must take after her mom. The compliment caught me off guard, and for a moment, I didn't know how to respond. After months of being told I wasn't good enough, it was strange to hear someone believe in me. Thank you, I said finally, feeling a warmth I hadn't felt in a long time. The day passed quickly, and by the time I picked Lily up from school, she was brimming with excitement. Mommy, guess what? Miss Parker said I did the best drawing in class today. Look. She pulled a crumpled piece of paper from her backpack and handed it to me. It was a drawing of the two of us holding hands under a big yellow sun. Above our heads, she'd written in wobbly letters, Me and Mommy. Tears pricked my eyes as I looked at the picture. It's beautiful, Lily, I said, pulling her into a hug. I'm so proud of you. As we walked home, Lily chattered about her day, her energy infectious. For the first time in months, I felt a sense of normalcy returning to our lives. But that evening, as I was tucking her into bed, my phone buzzed with a message. I glanced at the screen and froze. It was from Daniel. This isn't over, Claire. I'll see you in 6 months. My heart sank. Of course, he wasn't going to let this go. The court's decision had been a temporary victory, but the battle was far from over. I stared at the message, my mind racing. Fear crept in, but I quickly pushed it aside. I couldn't let him intimidate me. Not again. Instead, I focused on Lily, who was already drifting off to sleep, her small hand clutching her stuffed rabbit. Watching her, I felt a renewed sense of determination. Daniel could threaten all he wanted, but I wasn't the same woman I was before. I had faced him in court and won, and I would do it again if I had to. Over the next few weeks, I began preparing for the inevitable. I worked with Jonathan to ensure that my case would be airtight if Daniel decided to challenge the custody arrangement again. I gathered more testimonials, kept meticulous records of my time with Lily, and even started a journal documenting our daily lives. It was exhausting, but it also reminded me of how far I'd come. Every page of that journal was a testament to my love for Lily and the lengths I would go to protect her. One evening, as I sat at the kitchen table sorting through paperwork, Karen called. "Claire, I wanted to tell you about an opportunity," she said. "There's a part-time grant writing position opening up here, and I think you'd be perfect for it. Pays more and the hours are flexible." The offer took me by surprise. It was exactly the kind of opportunity one needed to build a more stable life for Lily. "I don't know, Karen," I said hesitantly. "I don't have any experience with grant writing." "You're smart and you're passionate," she replied. "That's all you need. Think about it." I hung up, staring at the phone. Part of me wanted to take the leap, but another part was afraid. What if I failed? What if Daniel used it against me, claiming I was unstable for changing jobs again? But then I thought of Lily's drawing. The two of us under the sun, happy and safe. She believed in me, and that was all the motivation I needed. The next day, I told Karen I was interested in the position. She smiled, her confidence in me bolstering my own. "Good choice," she said. "You're going to do great things, Claire." As I walked home that evening, I felt a glimmer of hope. Life wasn't perfect, and there were still battles ahead, but I was learning to navigate the challenges one step at a time. Lily greeted me at the door with her usual exuberance, and as we sat down to dinner, I couldn't help but feel a sense of gratitude. They told me I wasn't fit to be a mother, I thought to myself, but they were wrong. I'm stronger than they'll ever know. The months leading up to the court's 6-month review felt like a quiet storm brewing in the distance. On the surface, life seemed to be settling into a steady rhythm. Lily was thriving in school, her laughter filling our small apartment every evening as she recounted her adventures with classmates. My new position at the nonprofit had given me a sense of purpose and stability I hadn't felt in years. But beneath the calm exterior, I was preparing for the inevitable. Daniel's message from months ago still echoed in my mind. This isn't over. And I believed him. Jonathan, ever the diligent attorney and friend, worked tirelessly to ensure I was ready. "We need to focus on showing the court that you've built a stable, nurturing environment for Lily," he said one afternoon as we went over my files. I nodded, flipping through the neatly organized binder I'd compiled. It was filled with school reports, medical records, photos of Lily at home and school events, and even letters from her teacher and neighbors praising her progress. Every detail of my life as a mother was laid out in those pages, a testament to my commitment to my daughter. "You've done an incredible job, Claire," Jonathan said, his tone reassuring. "No judge in their right mind would take Lily away from you after seeing this." His words were comforting, but the shadow of doubt lingered. I knew how manipulative Daniel could be. He had resources, connections, and a deep-seated need to win. If there was a way to twist the narrative in his favor, he would find it. One evening, as I sat on the couch reviewing my notes, Lily climbed into my lap with her favorite book. "Can we read this one, Mommy?" she asked, holding up the worn copy of Goodnight Moon. "Of course, sweetheart," I said, setting aside my papers. As I read to her, I felt a wave of guilt. Lately, so much of my time and energy had been consumed by the custody battle that I worried I wasn't fully present for her. But in moments like this, when her head rested on my shoulder and her tiny hand held mine, I knew she felt my love. After tucking her into bed, I stood in the doorway for a moment, watching her sleep. Her soft breathing and peaceful expression were a reminder of why I was fighting so hard. She deserved a childhood free from chaos and fear, a childhood filled with love and stability. The next morning, I received a letter in the mail that made my stomach drop. It was from Daniel's attorney, requesting an expedited hearing to reevaluate the custody arrangement. I immediately called Jonathan, my voice trembling. "He's trying to push the review forward." "What does this mean?" "It means he's trying to catch us off guard," Jonathan replied, his tone calm but serious. "But we're ready, Claire. Let him bring whatever he's got. We'll show the court the truth." The days leading up to the hearing were a blur of preparation. Jonathan and I reviewed every detail, anticipating Daniel's arguments and preparing counterpoints. I barely slept, my mind racing with worst-case scenarios. The morning of the hearing, I stood in front of the mirror, smoothing down the navy dress I'd chosen. It was simple but professional, an outfit that projected confidence and composure, even if I didn't feel it. "Mommy, you look pretty," Lily said, peeking into the room. I knelt down and hugged her tightly. "Thank you, baby. You're my good luck charm. You know that?" She giggled and kissed my cheek. "Good luck, Mommy." As I left for the courthouse, I felt a mix of fear and determination. This hearing wasn't just about defending my rights as a mother. It was about protecting Lily's future. When I arrived, Daniel was already there, his polished appearance a stark contrast to the cold, calculating glint in his eyes. His attorney, a sharp-dressed woman with a no-nonsense demeanor, greeted him with a firm handshake. Jonathan gave me a reassuring nod as we entered the courtroom. "Remember, Claire, the truth is on your side. Stay calm, answer honestly, and let me handle the heavy lifting." The hearing began, and as expected, Daniel's attorney wasted no time painting him as the perfect father. She emphasized his financial stability, his spacious home, and his willingness to provide Lily with every opportunity she deserved. But then she shifted her focus to me, her tone dripping with condescension. "Miss Carter may love her daughter, but love alone doesn't pay the bills or provide the structure a child needs to thrive. Isn't it true, Miss Carter, that you've struggled financially in the past? That you've relied on public assistance to make ends meet?" My heart raced, but I kept my voice steady. "Yes, I've faced challenges, but I've always ensured Lily's needs were met. She's never gone without food, shelter, or love." Jonathan stepped in, redirecting the narrative. "Miss Carter has worked tirelessly to create a stable home for her daughter. She's held steady employment, maintained a consistent routine for Lily, and prioritized her well-being above all else. Financial stability is important, but it's not the only factor in determining a child's best interests." The judge listened intently, her expression unreadable. When it was Daniel's turn to speak, he painted himself as the victim, claiming he only wanted what was best for Lily. But his carefully crafted facade cracked when Jonathan began questioning him. "Mr. Carter, can you explain why you haven't attended any of Lily's school events in the past 6 months, despite having visitation rights?" Daniel shifted uncomfortably. "I've been busy with work. And yet, you're arguing that Miss Carter's job as a single mother is somehow a disadvantage?" Jonathan pressed. The tension in the room was palpable. For the first time, Daniel looked uncertain. As the hearing drew to a close, I felt a glimmer of hope. Jonathan had exposed the cracks in Daniel's arguments, and I had spoken from the heart about my love for Lily. Now all I could do was wait for the judge's decision. The day of the judge's final decision loomed over me like a thundercloud. Weeks had passed since the expedited hearing, and though I tried to focus on Lily and our daily routine, the waiting gnawed at me. Every time my phone buzzed, my heart skipped a beat, fearing it might be a call from the court. Jonathan had been optimistic after the hearing. "You presented yourself as the devoted mother you are," he told me, his tone firm. "Daniel's arguments were weak. The judge will see through him." But doubt had a way of creeping in, whispering fears I couldn't ignore. What if Daniel's money and connections swayed the court? What if this judge didn't care about the love I had for Lily, only about appearances and bank statements? On the morning of the decision, I woke up early, unable to sleep. Lily was still in bed, her soft breathing the only sound in the apartment. I sat by the window with a cup of coffee, staring out at the city waking up around me. "You've done everything you can," I told myself, repeating Jonathan's words like a mantra. "No matter what happens, you've fought for her." Lily stirred awake an hour later, rubbing her eyes as she padded into the kitchen. "Good morning, Mommy," she said sleepily, climbing into my lap. "Good morning, my love," I said, kissing the top of her head. "What are we doing today?" she asked, her voice bright and full of curiosity. I forced a smile. "We're going to have a big adventure," I said. "But first, Mommy has a meeting to go to." "Can I come?" she asked, her eyes lighting up. I shook my head gently. "Not this time, sweetheart. But I promise, when I get back, we'll go to the park and get ice cream." "How does that sound?" "Chocolate chip?" she asked eagerly. "Anything you want," I said, hugging her tightly. When I arrived at the courthouse, my stomach was in knots. Jonathan greeted me with his usual calm demeanor, but even he couldn't entirely mask the tension in his voice. "The judge will be here soon," he said. "Whatever happens, Claire, remember that you've done everything possible. You've shown that you're the best person to raise Lily." I nodded, though my throat felt too tight to speak. The courtroom was eerily quiet as we waited for the judge to arrive. Daniel sat across the aisle, his polished suit and confident smirk a stark contrast to the anxiety bubbling inside me. His attorney whispered something to him, and he chuckled softly, the sound grating against my nerves. When the judge finally entered, the room fell silent. She was a stern woman in her 60s, her expression unreadable as she took her seat. "This court has carefully reviewed all evidence presented," she began, her voice steady. "The well-being of the child is the paramount concern in custody cases, and my decision is based solely on what I believe to be in Lily Carter's best interest." I gripped the edge of the table, my heart pounding in my chest. "The court recognizes the love and dedication both parents have for Lily," the judge continued. "However, it is clear from the evidence presented that Miss Carter has provided a stable, nurturing environment that prioritizes Lily's emotional and developmental needs." My breath caught in my throat as her words sank in. "Therefore, custody of Lily Carter will remain with her mother, Claire Carter. Mr. Carter will retain his visitation rights as previously outlined." A wave of relief washed over me, so powerful it nearly knocked me over. Jonathan squeezed my arm, his smile triumphant. "Congratulations, Claire," he whispered. Across the aisle, Daniel's face darkened. His attorney leaned over, whispering something, but he didn't respond. He simply stood, adjusted his suit, and walked out of the courtroom without looking back. As I left the courthouse, the weight of the past months began to lift. The sun was shining, the air crisp and full of possibility. When I got home, Lily ran to me, her arms outstretched. "Mommy, you're back." I scooped her up, holding her close. "I told you, didn't I? We're going to the park and getting ice cream." "Chocolate chip," she declared, giggling. "Yes, chocolate chip," I said, tears of joy streaming down my face. That evening, as Lily and I sat on the park bench eating our ice cream, I felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude. The battle had been long and exhausting, but it had been worth every tear, every sleepless night, every moment of doubt. They told me I wasn't fit to be a mother, I thought, watching Lily chase after a butterfly. But I proved them wrong. I fought for her and I won. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink, I knew this wasn't the end of the journey. There would be challenges ahead, obstacles to overcome, and moments of doubt.